Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Black Ops 6. It is finally time. I got my skill data sent over to me from Activision, and just like we predicted, it is some of the creepiest, most game manipulating nonsense that we could have ever imagined, and to be honest, it was quite a lot to go through. These guys track absolutely everything about your character, and they've been doing so since Modern Warfare 2019. These dudes know everything about you, from multiplayer to zombies, Warzone, ranked play, private matches, even co-op modes. Big Brother Activision is always watching, and if you're wondering why skill-based matchmaking is so thick here within Call of Duty, it's because they know everything about you and the way that you play. They then assign you a skill rating based upon that, and unless you really go out of your way to play poorly, that skill rating will stay roughly the same over time, which creates this experience where every match basically just feels the same. I've always kind of said that I don't feel like I'm playing real people. I feel like I'm playing AI versions of myself on the other team nonstop, and over time, that just gets really draining, and it creates this feeling of apathy from the Call of Duty player base. Now that myself and plenty of other people are able to access their skill data, we're really starting to learn more about this system and how it works and how some people are able to manipulate it. Exclusive Ace did a really good video yesterday going over some general observations as well as asking the community to send over their data so he can do some much more thorough testing, and today I wanted to go over my own data and give my own initial thoughts and reactions to what's been going on behind the scenes. So the first thing I wanted to show here is how my skill rating changed over time, and I'm not good when it comes to making graphs or anything. I had to watch so many tutorials as to how to work all this stuff essentially, but here's how my skill rating has changed over time, and obviously there's some peaks and valleys here, but in general it stays pretty consistent. When it comes to how Activision tracks skill within a game like Black Ops 6, it seems like a rating of 0 might actually be the average amongst the player base. And before we get too far into the video, I want to say that I'm not here to call people out. People on the internet tend to get incredibly toxic about who's good, who's bad. There's a lot of fragile egos out there, and I frankly don't give a shit about any of that. I'm not here to measure COD dicks or anything like that. I just want to know how skill-based matchmaking works and see what we can learn from it. And we saw this Reddit thread the other day where somebody else showed their skill data. This person has a lifetime elimination death ratio of 1.38 with a score per minute of 442 with an average skill rating of 165. What's crazy is I have the same exact elim death ratio for my lifetime at 1.38, a score per minute of 475, which is only 33 more than the other player, but my skill rating is at 236 for my average across the entirety of the Black Ops 6 lifecycle. Another player reported that they have a lifetime kill death ratio of 0.9 with an average skill rating of -74, and Ace discussed this in his video, but it seems like the true average skill rating for the Call of Duty player base might just straight up be 0, and then the higher you climb in terms of kill death ratio, score per minute, and all that, your skill rating will rise over time. But what's interesting is it seems like the quality of your opponents really weighs in on your skill level as well. In Ace's video, he showed a 2-boxer who had really good stats. I mean, obviously he was 2-boxing, so he's dropping nukes every match pretty much, but his skill rating was relatively low, and once 2-boxing got patched, his skill rating skyrocketed because they started to place him in lobbies with people that had similar stats to his own, which in turn lowered his overall stats, but increased his skill rating because he was finally facing equal competition. And the same thing pretty much happened to me when I tested 2-boxing back in November. I got a second account, the father of 4, you guys might remember that, and I 2-boxed off of him. I didn't play that many matches, but I just wanted to test and kind of see how things were going, and that data was included with what Activision sent over to me. So going into my test of 2-boxing, I was sitting at a skill rating of 304. In my first 2-boxed match, I went 110 and 19, and my skill rating actually dropped by 23 points. Overall, throughout my 2-boxing testing, I went 357 and 59 over the course of 5 or 6 matches, and my skill rating actually dropped by 61 points. This means that 2-boxing was an incredibly effective method for getting easy lobbies, because not only did you have easy matches because you forced your way in there with the 2-box method, but playing in those lobbies would lower your skill rating, which meant that once you were done 2-boxing, your next normal matches would be easier as a result. For me, it took about 14 full matches for Activision to slowly raise my skill rating back to where it was before I started doing my 2-boxing testing, which I think is really interesting. The same thing happened when I essentially lost my mind trying to do the stupid Darkspine camo challenges for the HE1 rocket launcher. Before they changed the challenge for that rocket launcher, you had to shoot down multiple streaks in multiple different games, which was hard to do because it was a free fire launcher and nobody puts up anything besides UAVs. So the best way I figured for me to do that challenge was to essentially just feed the other team kills over and over, so they would call in their kill streaks and then I would have a chance to shoot them down. And this would end up being that giant skill valley you guys see here in my chart. start. I was already on a bit of a skill rating decline because the only weapons I had left for dark matter were things like pistols, launchers, the baseball bat, the combat knife, terrible weapons like that, like stuff that's not fun to use and stuff where you're just gonna die a whole bunch. But when I started to feed the other team kills to do my HE1 challenges, my skill rating plummeted like mad. We went to -11 to -36, -57, -95, -118, -136, until eventually we went all the way to -275 skill rating, which essentially is the polar opposite of the lobbies I'm usually playing in. And the problem with being in this low of a skill bracket was nobody on the other team was actually good enough to get their kill streaks, despite the fact that I'm just giving them kills. I'm going 0-32, 0-23, 0-22, and they could still never put up UAVs. So I found myself in like skill rating hell. I essentially had to fix my skill rating by getting kills so that I could be matched with players who could actually call in streaks. And that just goes to show how crazy manipulative this matchmaking system is. Like, I will admit it took some time, roughly 20 matches of varying time spans of me just either not playing or intentionally feeding or whatever, but still, it took my skill rating and dropped it by almost 400, and then being placed with these incredibly low skill players. What makes this even more interesting is the system actually seems quite slow in figuring out what is happening. So over the course of the next 3 matches of actually getting kills and working on challenges, my skill rating went up, but it's still ranked at -202. It's like the system was figuring out that I wasn't completely terrible at the game, because I would have matches where I go 0-6 before backing out, and that would actually increase my skill rating. But by the time I was finally done with my HE1 rocket launcher challenges, my skill rating was set to -286, which so far seems to probably be the bottom of the barrel when it comes to skill ratings within Black Ops 6. Of course, we're waiting for more information from more players. We need to see data from people of all varying skill levels and everything, but -286 seems like it's pretty much towards the very bottom of the barrel. And from there, I was just able to do my dark matter challenges. And do you guys want to know how many matches it took for my skill rating to go back to +200? 85 games. That's freaking crazy. Now, a lot of that was going into face-off or camo challenges and backing out quite a bit and everything like that, but still, it took roughly 1 week of real-life playtime before my skill rating finally went back to normal, and in there, I think, we see another big problem with skill-based matchmaking. The system can be so easily manipulated, and doing things like challenges can really affect your rating, causing you to be put in the lobbies that the system does not want you to be in, which causes for some really bad team imbalances, which likely is the reason why so many people are backing out of their games so often. Normally, Call of Duty is incredibly good at tracking your skill rating, and so long as you just keep playing normally, that rating does not really fluctuate around all that much. But when somebody goes on a bad run because they're doing tough challenges or something like that, they get thrown into these lower lobbies for a bit, which really messes with the people in those brackets who are just trying to play normally. It creates this feeling where nothing is authentic anymore, everything feels artificial, and when you're doing too good for too long, the game inflates your rating to bring you back down to earth, and when you're doing poorly for too long, the game throws you a few bones to keep you playing. It's the very definition of engagement optimized matchmaking. They don't want you doing too well or too poorly all the time. They want to keep you right there in the middle relative to your average skill level. This is why there are 10 distinct brackets when it comes to this matchmaking system, and why it's possible that players can have an average skill rating of over 250 over the course of 1,000 matches, whereas other players can have an average skill rating of -100 over the course of the same time. The system identifies and assigns you a rating after tracking you for a while, and then tries to keep you within that range the best that it can, so good players only face good players, bad players only face bad players, and the only time the two intermingle is when some really odd things happen, like for example, me feeding the other team kills for 2 hours straight so I could shoot down their UAVs. What's also really interesting is the data Activision sent over seems to yet again confirm that the in-game tools that we have to track things like player experience don't always seem to work, which can leave the player base feeling really confused about what's happening within the game itself. You guys may remember a few videos ago I was talking about my double XP testing within Black Ops 6. I did a very simple test. You join in on Hardpoint on Nuketown, you get a kill, you back out, and you track your XP. Well, what's really weird about this is it seems like on the back end, Activision or Treyarch are actively tweaking and changing XP values, because Exclusive Ace said in his video a while back that a Hardpoint Nuketown kill is worth 60 XP, while during double XP weekend, a Hardpoint Nuketown kill was giving me 136 6 XP each time, which meant the normal kill would be worth 68 compared to 60. So it seems like on the back end, Treyarch is going through and just randomly adjusting the XP earn rates for individual game modes and individual maps, likely based on all the data that they collect in an effort to once again control how quickly players level up, which is yet another form of manipulation and them trying to optimize our engagement. But regardless of that, let's take a look at what I recorded and tested versus what Activision reported within their data, because overall, this does really seem to make a lot of sense. 136 XP per elimination every single match, and they even seem to be accurately tracking double medal XP, because as you guys can see here on game 3, I got 186 XP, which means 136 from the kill, and then 50 from my point blank medal, which got doubled from 25 to 50. On game 6, I got my normal 136 XP, and then the additional 100 XP from my point blank and savior medals being doubled. All of this seems to actually make sense, right? Well, except for my 10th kill here, it makes zero sense, and Activision doesn't seem to have an answer for it either. So in the data itself, this kill right here, which is a kill that includes a headshot and Kingslayer medal, only gave me 100 XP total. It's all right there in the spreadsheet. I did 87 damage, I got the kill, it logged the headshot, I got the Kingslayer medal even, but I got 100 total XP when I should have gotten 236. Like, that's really freaking creepy if you ask me. A system like this shouldn't just randomly not track your XP correctly, and my suspicion is they did not count the kill XP at all for some reason, and instead only gave me the 100 XP that I would have gotten from my 2 medals being doubled. So what we can take from this is the in-game XP meter seems to be broken, and it doesn't always accurately reflect what XP is required for you to level up, especially if you're backing out of matches too quickly. What seems to happen is sometimes it looks like you got no XP whatsoever, but the next time you check, it will retroactively throw in the XP that you were missing from before, which again causes a bunch of confusion within the player base. And we also see that for some reason, and I'm not sure how common it is, but when it comes to Activision, I'm always skeptical, but I only got 100 XP for a double XP kill with 2 medals associated with it. I tracked 100 XP, Activision tracked 100 XP, and that was less than half of what should have been given out, so I really have no idea how to explain that, and it certainly doesn't look good when XP doesn't even add up on Activision's end. What's also interesting is while doing this testing, my skill rating stayed perfectly the same at 317 the entire time. Like, me joining, sometimes dying a bunch, getting a kill, and then leaving did not affect my rating at all. In fact, my rating went up right after I joined normal matches after my testing was over. Then I got my ass kicked in Search and Destroy for a few games, which caused my rating to go down before quickly going back up again to over 300. Now, something else that Ace mentioned in his video, and I wanted to take a look at it as well, was the idea that limited time modes may not have any skill-based matchmaking associated with them. Anecdotally, I mentioned to you guys in the past that game modes like Minefield back in Modern Warfare 3, that mode just had no skill-based matchmaking whatsoever, and more recently here in Black Ops 6, it seems like game modes like Ransack also don't seem to have heavily laid matchmaking either. While looking at what Activision sent over to me, I'm not really sure what to make of all of this, because at the time, I was working through pistols and hardcore face-off, and that's just always a crapshoot. Like, my skill rating was plummeting at that time, and after finally having enough, I jumped into Ransack for 9 straight matches, and slowly but surely, my skill rating went from 23 all the way up to 209, which is actually quite the spike. A few matches after that, I was back to the 280 skill rating areas, so it does seem like my skill rating changed quite a bit while playing a game mode like Ransack, but interestingly enough, it didn't seem to affect the overall quality of the matches themselves. Another time, I played 5 straight matches of Ransack, and my skill rating stayed virtually the same as what it was before, and then it continued to stay the same afterwards. Even though I wasn't playing that well, my rating stayed the same, so perhaps the first example was kind of skewed with my initial rating being so low, and then the game was just trying to adjust me on the back end without having it really affect the outcome of my Ransack matches. I really don't know. Like, I'm not that big of a stats guy. I try to leave that for other people, but I will say all this information has been really interesting for me, and I'm excited to see what more might come of this moving forward. Right now, Ace is gathering a ton of data from his community, and from there, we may finally be able to understand more about skill-based matchmaking and how it works and how it might be manipulated and how it can affect us as the player base. Right now, it seems like limited time modes and party modes may not be affected by your skill rating whatsoever, which might actually change things up quite a bit within the community as people stop playing game modes like Hardpoint and Domination, and rather, anytime there's a limited time mode out, they might start jumping into there because their skill rating will not affect the quality of their match experience. We already kind of knew this, but we have learned that reverse boosting, based on the data here, is incredibly effective. We've also learned that what happens in older games can affect you in the current game, which is why my initial skill rating going into Black Ops 6 started out at 300 instead of 0. Like, it just took basically the information they had from me from Modern Warfare 3 essentially, and then put that right into Black Ops 6. And as more people can access to their information, it's going to be really interesting to see the scale of what might be considered a high skill player to an average skill player to a low skill player. And with enough data, we may actually be able to find out exactly what causes our ratings to go up or down most effectively. Maybe it's something as simple as stop moving so much and your rating goes down and you can finally feel like you're playing the game casually, or maybe it's something much more complicated than that. All I know is it's really interesting that some of us finally have access to our information, and it further reaffirms everything that the community has been suspecting for the last 5 or 6 years, which is Activision is shady as shit. All this stuff should only be used for ranked play, but for some reason it's being used for our casual public matches. And we also know that all of us essentially are experiencing different versions of the game. One person whose average skill rating is, say, -50 experiences a much different game overall than somebody who is playing the game at an average skill rating of +100 or +150 or 200. Like, all this does is muddy the waters so much that we don't even know like who is good at COD anymore. Like, I'm over here with an elim death ratio of 1.36, which could be higher had I not gone for dark matter, but regardless, it seems like I'm playing on average towards the top of the Call of Duty skill brackets. That might not be exactly true. We're gonna have to wait to see more people's data, but it seems like an average rating of like 300 or higher would mean you're pretty much a god tier player based on what we've seen so far. So if you're somebody that's hovering around 175 to 200, then you're definitely in that top portion of the player base. So when somebody starts bragging about a certain stat or whatever, that just doesn't mean anything anymore, man. We are all playing different versions of the game. Like, oh, do you have a pretty high KD? Well, what's your average skill rating at? Oh, did you get a chopper gunner last match? Well, what's your skill rating for that particular game and the average skill rating over the course of your last 10 to 15 games? Let's bust out the calculator and find how good you really are. Like, do you guys see what I'm saying here? This shit is so creepy. It's so manipulative. And like most of you, what it's caused me to feel is nothing but apathy. Like, did I do well? Cool, I probably got fed that lobby. Did I do bad? Oh well, for some reason, that lobby was a 400 skill rating lobby, so I wasn't expected to do well whatsoever. You guys want to know what's pretty crazy here? Like, I think it was like 2 or 3 days after Black Ops 6 came out, I posted a video claiming that skill-based matchmaking in Black Ops 6 is out of control, and the gameplay I used was on Babylon, where I went a combined 56 eliminations and 44 deaths, which was exactly 100 engagements, which was exactly what Activision and Treyarch want. They always want us to feel engaged, whether or not we're having fun, as long as we're being engaged, And when I go to that match in my Activision skill data here, it turns out my skill rating at that time was 396. No fucking wonder the match was sweaty as shit, and look at all the matches that followed. I was on a run there where no matter how good I did or how bad I did, the game just said, no, you're gonna be playing in the super high skill lobbies no matter what, and it was draining to play, dude. It was downright not fun whatsoever. The game just came out, it already wasn't fun essentially, and the same thing is happening to each and every one of you each and every day to greater or lesser extents. Doesn't matter if you're a 500 skill level player or a -500 skill level player, you always have the same experience every single game because you're always going to be facing people of an equal skill level unless some really weird external factors happen to take place. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for this video here today. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts and feedback and all this down there in the comments. Apologies if it was a bit of a boring one considering we're just going over numbers and stats and whatnot, but it's one of those things that we waited a long time for. I got the data and we got some really interesting information out of it, so I do hope you guys all enjoyed it. Leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.